Listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining National PTA's webinar titled The Ins and Outs of Special Education, Help for Families of Children with Special Needs. Before we begin, I want to review the functionality of GoToWebinar. Right now, everyone is on mute except the presenters. We will hold all questions until the end of the presentation. If you have a question throughout the webinar, you can enter it in the question box here. During the Q&A period at the end of the session, I will read questions aloud for the presenters to answer. If we do not have time to answer your question during this session, we will follow up with you directly following this presentation. Finally, this webinar is being recorded and will be sent along with the slide presentation to everyone who registered for this webinar. It will also be available on pta.org later this week. I would now like to introduce National PTA Board Liaison to the Special Needs Committee, Kathy Nevins. Kathy will present.
Good morning from wherever you...
I'm sorry, Kathy, go ahead.
Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. I'm so excited to welcome everyone to this special needs webinar. I remember talking to a friend many years ago who spoke about having a special needs child and compared it to preparing for a vacation to a foreign country, learning a new language, preparing for the sights to see and the places to visit, and when she got to her location, lo and behold, she ended up in a different country with a different language. And while it was not what she thought it would be, it was still wonderful and beautiful. That's how I felt when I was first assigned to this committee. I was prepared with PTA knowledge and thought I knew education jargon, but boy, was I really wrong. As soon as I attended my first meeting and they started talking about IEPs, IDEA, FAPE, 504s, SEP, SEPTAs, I looked at them and thought they were talking a foreign language. So the first thing that we decided that needed to be done and make sure that we had on our pta.org page was a directory of all the terminology used for special needs families. Heather is going to be showing you different things on the PTA page and where to get to those as I talk about them. On this website, there's an amazing section just devoted to special needs, starting with this Getting Started, which is an introduction to special education process and how to advocate for your child. It answers the questions, what is special needs? What do I need to bring to my child's IEP? Can my child participate in physical education classes just as a start? The next area is in regards to transition pre-K to graduation and understanding federal policy, which you'll hear more about later on in this webinar. The other thing that I really appreciated, and I have offered to many people to go to look for, is a parent's dictionary, telling me and showing me what the terms mean. I'll be honest with you, I even had trouble in the beginning with ADD and ADHD just to start with. So to have a resource where I could go to find out what all of these things meant before my next meeting really helped me, and I think they would enable any parents to be ahead of the game. Following was, when I talked about another language, there really is another language, and that's the list of acronyms that is associated with special needs programs. That they're all so close. ADA, ADD, ADHD, seriously, I had trouble just learning the basics, IEP, IDEA. Most of you probably know those already, but I didn't. So to have a place and a resource where I could go or where I can refer people to who are just starting school, who are just learning that their child has special needs, this is a great resource. There is also another category entitled Just Resources, and this is a directory of tools and organizations that families can access for assistance. National PTA has done a lot of work working with all these different agencies to make sure that we are providing information for our parents. All of these are fantastic tools with great information and relevant resources. Help those who need this help by referring parents, teachers, and school districts about the Special Needs Toolkit. While I'm sure that being on a committee is nothing compared to having a special needs child, I do know one thing. Every child is entitled to a great education. Sometimes getting that for our children takes us down a different road, but the journey is worth it to see our child, your child, all children succeed. And with that, I'd like to introduce our next speaker. Corey Sanfilippo has been involved in PTA for 31 years, of which the last 4 years she has been involved at the national level for the Special Needs Committee. She's worked in special ed for 8 years working with families and now with her superintendent of school district. I am pleased to call her a friend, and she is a wealth of information. Corey.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I hope I'm here to help you today. Today we're going to talk about transition, what it is, and where do I start. Most people think transition is when their child is graduating from high school or leaving high school and what do, but actually it starts as a newborn. The first part, if you could move the slide to transition, is moving it's moving from in-home services to school services. It's changing services. Transition is moving from one school to another, one grade level to another, moving from high school to post-secondary, moving out of high school to college, or even a vocational ed center. You can switch the slide. So first of all, how do I help my child that's transitioning from early start? Early start is usually from birth to 2.5 years old. By the time they're 3, the school has to have in place a service for your child. This can be one of the most difficult transitions for parents because they're used to everything being in their home, and all of a sudden at the age of 3, it isn't in their home anymore. It's at their school. So some of the questions you might want to ask for early start to preschool is, what's the best school setting? Can I go see the campus and make sure it's where I want my child? How do I meet the teacher? How long is preschool? Is it all day? Is it part day? Where are the services going to be? Are they going to be here at school? And what is a behavior class? Then you go into transition from preschool to kindergarten. That is even scarier because a lot of schools, kindergarten now is all day. It's not only 3 hours a day. A child should go, if all possible, to their neighborhood school. But the reality that the same services that at every school in the district is kind of far and few between. So here's some questions you need to ask. What type of school is the best setting to meet my child's needs? Can I visit the school? Is there more than one campus that I can see that's going to best suit my child? How do I meet the teacher? How do I meet the staff members? How many hours is my child going to go to school? Will my child have the same teacher for kindergarten and other grade levels? How many children are going to be in the class? Because usually preschool classes are pretty small. They're 8 to 10. Now they're going to go into a kindergarten class that could be 15, 20, 25, depending on your state. What services will my child receive? How will these services differ from what my child is receiving now in preschool? How will my child get to school? If he or she is not attending their neighborhood school, will they receive transportation? How long is the bus ride? How do I get on a bus? Who picks them up? Who meets them? Does my child get lunch at school, or do I need to provide it every day? Is my child really ready for kindergarten? And is there after-school care for my child? Please change the slide. Then, once your child is out of getting ready to leave kindergarten to go to elementary school and then on to middle school, the questions are about the same. You want to know, are they going to go to their neighborhood school? How will the services change on an IEP from an elementary school to middle school, from kindergarten straight to elementary? Can I visit the school campus? Are there more campuses that offer the same services? How will the teachers touch base with me? School is very different once you hit elementary school. What are the school hours? How do I get progress reports? Is there a school orientation? Can I bring my child on this campus to walk around and feel comfortable? Does the school have counselors? How can we meet them? My child's on medication, and what are your procedures? Are there any school functions that my child can start going to now to feel comfortable and feel safe at school? What are the homework clubs? Are there homework clubs? Are there clubs my child can attend so they can feel comfortable? Now there's PE, and how is my child going to adapt to PE? Are there lockers, and how is my child going to adapt to getting the lockers? Those are just a few of the questions, and now your child transitioning from middle school to junior high, and that's even scarier because now they're getting older, they're more leaving the nest. I would suggest you visit the school campus that is required. You meet with the school counselor as well as many teachers as you can. Be sure to inquire as to the opportunities your child will have while they're in high school. And here are some questions that I find when talking to my parents that we've suggested and they've given to me. How will the services change on my child's IEP from middle or junior high school to high school? Because there are more periods in the day. There are 0 periods, there's after school periods, so depending on what's at your high school. What are requirements for graduation? What happens if my child doesn't meet these graduation requirements? What is the grading system? Are there quarters? Are there semesters? What about finals? How is my child going to be able to take finals? Is there workability or career or vocation education at school? Is it on the IEP? If it's not on the IEP, they're not going to give those services. So you need to make sure those classes are available, especially in high school, to your child. What will my child need to be successful at this school? What can I provide? What do I need to provide? What's going to happen during finals? You know, my child gets nervous during testing. What kind of accommodations are you going to make? When can I obtain my child's schedule so I can bring my child around the campus to make sure that first day of school is not overwhelming and is easier for them? How does my child make up credits if he or she gets behind? What types of clubs are available for my child to fit in at this school? Can you please change the slide? Transition from high school to college or career is another big one. I know here in my district, all of our post-secondary students go to school on an adult campus and they go to the local junior college. There's an agreement and they take some of their classes there so they feel that they are on an adult schedule and their schedule is on a college schedule. So make sure, what I always advise my parents is to always start a binder, but especially in that last year, have a binder with all their IEPs and amendments from high school because colleges are now asking for them. We're getting requests from Stanford, from Berkeley, from Yale, asking for copies of students' IEPs so they can make accommodations at the college level for their schedules and tests. So it's really important your child has this to take with them wherever they should go. But you also need to look not in their senior year. You need to look 4 to 5 years out before leaving the K-12 system. You need to identify your child's personal learning systems and the accommodations for your student to be successful in learning and worker. Identify career interests and skills. Identify additional education or training requirements. Explore options for post-secondary education and admission criteria. Identify interests and options for future living arrangements, including support. Your child should be able to explain his or her disability and accommodations if asked by a school or anyone, a job interview. Learn and practice informed decision-making. Pursue and use local transportation outside the family. They need to learn to be able to take the local bus system from point A to point B and from point B back to point A. Acquire an identification card and the ability to communicate personal information. Identify and learn skills for independent living, and learn and practice both personal health care. Please change the screen. 2 to 3 years out before leaving the case, you need to identify community support systems and programs, vocational rehabilitation, county services, Center for Independent Living, and regional centers. They're great help. Invite adult service providers, peers, and others to the IEP transition meetings. They need to be a team. Match career interests and skills with vocational coursework and community work experience. You need to gather information about post-secondary programs. One might work here, but one might work better over here. Make arrangements for accommodations to take college entrance exams. Identify healthcare providers and become informed about sexuality and planning family issues. Determine the need for financial support, whether it's supplemental income, security income, state financial supplemental programs, and Medicare. Learn and practice appropriate interpersonal communication and social skills for different settings. Explore legal status with regards to decision-making prior to the age of minority. Some states at 16, some at 17. So make sure what's in your state. Begin a resume and update it. Practice independent living skills with your child, budgeting, shopping, cooking, and house cleaning so they can live on their own. Identify needed personal assistance services. Change the slide, please. 12 months out, which is not very long. Apply for financial support programs, supplementary security income, independent living services, vocational rehabilitation, and personal assistance services. Identify the post-secondary school you plan to attend and arrange accommodations. Practice effective communication by developing interview skills, asking for help, and identifying necessary accommodations at post-secondary work environments. Specifically, to specify the desired job and obtain pay employment. A lot of our students here already start job interviews. We have different Macy's, Pizza Hut, local areas that come in and help the children go, their students or adults, go through their job interviews so they're not so scary the first time out. And most of us, the time, we accompany them so they feel safe. Take responsibility for arriving on time to work, appointments, and social activities. That's really important for our students to know that time is valued. Assume responsibility for healthcare needs. They need to know how to make their appointments, filling them, and taking prescriptions. And last screen, please. At this time, I would like to introduce William Doolittle. He is the elected president for Delaware PTA, state president-elect. But in my opinion, Bill is a true advocate for students with special needs. He fights tooth and nail for our kids. And so now I'd like to introduce Bill. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. You've heard my introduction, but the most important part is that I'm a parent of a child with complex disability who's walked the journey that every parent of a child with a disability walks and has made the missteps that we all encounter on our path to effectively advocating for our child. We have a large group on the webinar today, but I wanted to present primarily based on needs of parents who are new or still early in the path to effectively advocating for their children. For more experienced parents and advocates of children with disabilities, take yourself back to the time when you first started trying to advocate for your child and try to put yourselves in these shoes again. Parents should always be their children's most important advocates. Yet in the beginning, we have no training or experience and often are in an emotional whirlwind as we either consider the potential that our child has a disability or we've been told that they do. So how do we move forward rationally and effectively to help our children reach their potential? So this slide lists some of the reasons why you are naturally the most important advocate for your child and if you can be effective. These are important to remember during moments of doubt as you move forward advocating for your child. Advocacy in the beginning. The first work is to begin to educate yourself about your child's disability. This includes the nature and source of the disability, the current clinical and educational supports that can help, and as importantly, what can you do as a family to support your child in their daily life. Second, and often the greatest impediments to effectively advocating for a child is accepting the child's disability while recognizing the gifts that make your child special. Working through the grief, denial, and anger is essential to effectively advocating as a parent, since you will need all your energy for this effort. Third is understanding your child's needs so they can be appropriately supported in a safe environment to learn the skills they will need to meet their potential. You will become the expert for your child. their disability impacts, and their strengths. Next, creating and continually revising a plan on identified needs is essential. It does not come all at once, but builds over time. Your child should be involved in developing this plan to the greatest extent appropriate. Remember, supporting strengths is often more important to your child's future than addressing weaknesses. You now have the basic tools to advocate for your child. This does not mean you can be efficient trying to go it alone. No one can be fully effective without help, and this is especially true for a parent who is new to advocating. For most parents, this new stage lasts 1 to 3 years due to the complexity of the issues and the special education system. You will see on the slide both inner circle and system supports that you should be considering. The best step you can do is to reach out and use these supports that are out there as soon as possible. Experiential reference and emotional supports are equally important as technical and meeting assistance as you engage others to help you advocate for your child. So how do you find help? For the inner circle, it is drawing on the resources that you already know. Ideally, the school should facilitate accessing these systemic supports. But if this does not happen, go to your PTA or other parent organization and ask who helps families with disabilities advocacy. Do they have a special education committee or a lead? What resources do they have available to you? If it's not available at your school level, move up the line to your PTA structure at the district, region, council, state level, or if this fails, even to us at National PTA. The important thing is not to give up until you have the help you need so you can fully advocate for your child. I've included this last slide to help new parents understand why they need help in advocating and to remind others who are experienced parents and others who may want to help advocate just how complex, intimidating, frustrating, and scary it can be at the beginning. I hope the takeaway for new parents will be to ask for help early and often as you develop into effective advocates for your child, and for the rest of you to offer help whenever possible. Even if it's not taken initially, just knowing that there are others out there who care and are willing to help can mean a lot. Thank you. Next, I'll introduce our next speaker, Kim Henderson, who is a parent of a 20-year-old son with special needs. She's been involved with PTA for 18 years and has worked for school districts in both California and Wisconsin, and is currently in the process of relocating to Tennessee.
Thank you, Bill, and thank you to the committee. I wanted to start out talking a little bit about why PTA and why are you involved in PTA and why PTA should be involved with you. I've been involved with PTA for about 3 years, and I was serving as the PTA president for my daughter's school. And I went to a meeting, a council meeting, where we had a lot of PTA presidents, and the topic of special needs came up. I thought it was amazing that one of the PTA presidents from one of the other schools turned and said, special needs parents aren't involved in PTA, and they don't want to be. As a parent of a special needs child, I was absolutely shocked. I had been involved in PTA, and I was a PTA president. So I wanted to start out talking about why PTA by talking about why the PTA leaders need to reach out to special needs students. Now, whether you're at a school that, as a leader or as a special needs student and or supporter, these things carry true. Now, you'll notice on this slide that I use the word supporter instead of family. Special needs children usually have a wide circle of people working with them. And so I wanted to include the opportunities for PTA leaders to reach out not just to families, but to school staff, to counselors, and to all the support staff that they have. Now, why do PTA leaders need to reach out to special needs students? First of all, there are 5.7 million students in the U.S. that receive special education services. 5.7 million students need to be heard. Special education students also have many of the same needs as typical students. Frequently, as Kathy was mentioning, we have our whole language. We have all sorts of acronyms. We have all sorts of unique needs, but our students still have the same needs. They want to be included, they want to be involved, and they need the same types of programs and opportunities that other students need. One great advantage to PTA leaders in getting special education families involved is special education families generally already have advocacy and leadership skills. By being a parent, as Bill was mentioning, we have to develop advocacy skills to speak up for our students. PTA leaders are constantly looking for new leaders and new people to work with advocacy, so special education families make a perfect match. As we mentioned, all students deserve the benefits of your PTA. Your PTA strives to find the potential and develop the potential in every child. Special education parents also want the best for their children and for their schools. Sometimes I think people forget that. We sometimes get so involved in our own education and in our own children's education that sometimes we forget about the rest of the school and the rest of the environment. Special education parents know it is important. It needs a team. We all need to work together. And all kids benefit when all kids are included. There was recently a study talking about the old-fashioned style of K through 12 or K through 8, the old schoolhouse method, where kids were all together. And kids have learned how to work with one another by teaching each other and by sharing opportunities. I look back when I was in junior high school, back when the dinosaurs roamed the earth, and remember that I saw one special needs student throughout my whole junior high time. There may have been others at school, but we were never around them. I knew nothing about them. Being a parent now of special needs, I'm so excited to see that my school embraces my child, and that as they work together, they understand the differences between each of them, but also the typical students start being more compassionate and understanding the differences between them as well. I wanted to share a quote from Deepak Chopra that talks about success comes when people act together. Failure tends to happen when we work alone. We all need to work together to help every child reach their potential. Now, as a special ed parent, why should you be involved in PTA? PTA leaders should be reaching out to you, but why do you need to be involved? You need to be involved in PTA to help PTA leaders know how to include your child. Many times they don't understand, as Kathy was mentioning, all of the language and all of the issues involved with special needs, students and children. One of our advocacy opportunities as a parent is to help PTA know how to include your child. Maybe your child loves assemblies but can't handle the noise. Maybe there can be an opportunity for a different option so that your child can benefit from that as well. National PTA, your state PTA, and your local PTA offer wonderful programs such as Connect for Respect, which works with the bullying program, Reflections, which is an art program, Healthy Lifestyles, Family and School Partnerships, the Family Reading Experience, to name just a few. All of these programs have opportunities for special needs students at any level to be involved. There are also great resources, as Kathy mentioned earlier, the Special Education Toolkit, things like this webinar, and this team of leaders that works tirelessly for National PTA to help your voice to be heard. National PTA also advocates for IDEA and other special education legislation. It takes all of us and all of our voices together to work for legislative change. It is also a great opportunity for networking, getting to know other parents of special needs families, but also other parents, and dealing with many of the issues in education as a whole. Many states have also created SEPTAs, which are special education PTAs. For some parents, these work wonderfully as an opportunity to network and work on specific special education issues in their area. Sometimes SEPTAs are district-wide, sometimes they are school-based. But even if your school district doesn't have a SEPTA, that's something you can create, or you can just work within your bounds of your initial PTA. There are also grants and many programs that allow for special things in your school. One of the grants in our particular school district allowed for a lot more technology to be available in special needs classrooms. So be aware that there are grants and things available. And once again, we all need to work together to help our children reach their potential. Coming from Wisconsin, I frequently quote our famous coach, Vince Lombardi, and wanted to say that teamwork is what the Green Bay Packers were all about. He's referencing the Super Bowl time. They didn't do it for individual glory. They did it because they loved one another. And we want to reach out and share the needs with each student and each parent. So we encourage you to get involved and also to help your PTA leaders know how to involve themselves. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Kim. We're now going to spend the rest of the webinar with a question and answer period. So again, please type your questions in the question box on your dashboard, and I will read them aloud. So panelists, I am unmuting all of your lines now so that you can answer questions as appropriate. Okay, we have some questions coming in. The first question, how do you get past privacy protections to find out who those special needs families are? I would love to reach out to these families, but I don't know who they are.
This is Corey. Being a previous elementary school secretary, I had no problem when the PTA came in and said, Corey, we want to involve the PTA, the special ed students, into our stuff. And I would get that information out to the schools, to the parents, so the parents could then contact the PTA president themselves. So as a parent, I came in, the PTA president's phone number is usually, there is no privacy because they're the president at that school, and her number or email is usually ready, available to the secretary, and usually the secretary asks, can we give this out? So for PTA, I always went to the school secretary and said, I want to reach out to the special ed parents. Please give them my phone number and my email address, and had a flyer for them ready to go at the opening day of school or when they came in to get their registration packet. And I had all the time, I had parents come and say, is there a parent group here that I can get involved with? So I would hook them up with the PTA, and in California we have a community advisory committee that is by law, every district is to have one, and there should be a representative from each school. So I would hook them up with the chairman from the community advisory committee.
This is Kim. We also talked directly to the special education teachers and asked them for a lot of information general information about what types of things their students needed, what kind of opportunities, and then we would send through the teacher to the students' parents and families some kind of information, whether it's an information about what we were doing or a survey, so that we were funneling it pretty much through the teacher, and also then that way the teacher could also give us input if the parents didn't feel comfortable talking to us directly.
Okay, great. There's a question about where can you obtain the Special Education Toolkit. Kathy, would you mind reminding everyone where they can find it?
If you go to pta.org, and on the main page across the top, there's several different sections for members, for families, and I believe it is under for families, and you go follow it down and it will say special needs families. And once you click on that, there will be a wealth of information, but you can get to it from pta.org.
Great. Another question, do you have SAGE in your area, which is special and gifted education?
We do in Wisconsin.
I don't in Missouri.
We don't in Delaware.
In California, we don't have SAGE, but we do have gifted and talented programs available.
Okay. Someone had a question about obtaining the slides after the session. I will be emailing a copy of the slides out to everyone who registered for this session. Okay, I live in Oregon and there's no support for TAG students. Any advice on how to advocate for my TAG student? The answer is always there is no funding.
This is Bill. Actually, if your child is a child with special needs under IDEA, their gifted needs are supported. Other than that, it's a matter of advocating for those important supports.
This is Kim. I think another issue is when we're dealing with any students, funding's a problem. For those of you that are familiar with what's going on in Wisconsin for funding for the average student is a challenge. So we need to work together to look at additional ways to support and advocate for the kids in addition to funding issues, but in the opportunity to find different types of programs, different support systems. It's also a great opportunity to gather businesses and community resources together to possibly help with the funding issues.
What programs have you seen that are successful for disability awareness in schools?
This is Corey. I'm not sure if they're still doing it, but about 8 years ago, Easter Seals did a wonderful program that they would come for a week onto a school campus. We had them at the elementary. And our elementary had the hearing impaired and vision impaired along with other students with disabilities, but we were the county vision impaired program. They would come with wheelchairs and the mush balls that had sound, and we would do activities at recess and at lunchtime and then have an assembly. So the children themselves all participated like they were blind or hearing impaired or other disabilities. And I was very fortunate because at that school the children never saw disabilities and they just recognized all the students. And I don't know if it's because the programs that we put on were that every child was gifted and every child had a special need. But the Easter Seals used to come in and do all kinds of programs. And I know Kaiser Hospital in California does a lot of different kinds of programs that comes on to talk with special needs. We also do at the high school, which is called Circle of Friends, where the students sign up to be a Circle of Friends, and they are a lunchtime buddy to a special needs student, and they bring them into their Circle of Friends. And so we have a couple kids that one day they eat with the basketball team, one day they at lunch with the football team, one day they have lunch with the baseball team, and they give the general ed students, they protect these students, and it gives our special needs students that they are now friends with everybody at school and join different clubs. And there's a huge waiting list of our general ed students to be Circle of Friends. We have about 300 on each campus of the 2 high schools.
Okay, I recently attended a diversity and inclusion conference and learned about many different ways to create a more inclusive environment within the school. As a PTA member, how does one go about proposing that funds be used to provide a certain program within the school?
As a past PTA president, both at the local and the council level, generally we are looking for programs to present. And so it would be a matter of coming to or approaching your local PTA board and saying, hey, we've got this particular program. Realizing sometimes, though, that they do plan 6 to 8 months or a full school year ahead, it may be something that you need to approach at the end of the school year for the following school year. But generally, they're excited to offer programs and are looking for a diverse way to reach out to all of their students. So generally, just approaching them is the best way.
Okay, my town parent advisory committee meets while I'm at work. Do you have any suggestions on how I may contribute to a committee offline?
Once again, I think that's just asking your PTA to have opportunities, whether it's in electronic type of format, whether it's a meeting in the evening, whether it's a survey. It's just really letting your PTA know that you want to be involved, and they will usually try to find a way to involve you.
Okay, my daughter is in 12th grade this year, and before I never knew she would be able to go to college until this year. How can I share this with more of my parents in our district?
This is Corey. I would make sure that I would talk to the principal to see how you can have a family night, or if there's, a meeting night that the special ed parents go to, and let them know that they can do this and how to go about doing it. I would also talk to the high school counselor if you have one, because those high school counselors should be also notifying those parents that this is an opportunity that they can experience. I know for us, we start talking to them in 11th grade or earlier even, 10th and 11th grade, even those students that go on to the post-secondary, which they're with us till they're 22, they still know that they have the opportunity, and the entire 3 classes go to college, to the mission college, different times of the day, and those in the transition meetings and the IEP meetings, that's the best place for parents to learn about this. But the school can put on a little college night for the special ed parents. I think all they have to do is request it, and most of the schools will bring in the post-secondary and the college because they would love to talk about it.
If a person wants to suggest ideas for updating information on your special education page, who would they direct this information to? I'll actually jump in and answer that if that's okay, panelists. You can send any suggestions to me. I'm the National PTA staff member that works with this group and the Special Needs Committee. My email address is hparker, so H-P-A-R-K-E-R @pta.org.
Heather, this is Kathy, and I think that would be very beneficial to include maybe on a last slide that information so that they know how to contact us.
Great. Yes, the final slide of this presentation has everyone's contact information, and after the fact, when I distribute the recorded webinar and the PowerPoint slides, it'll be from me so everyone can have my contact information. Is there a National PTA Special Needs Facebook page?
No, that I know of.
Not that I know of.
Might be a good idea, though.
Excellent idea.
Greetings, panelists. Our son was transferred out of his home school into another school that was autism specific. We were told the teacher would be highly qualified, but that was not the case. How do we appropriately advocate for him to be returned to his home school? His home school does have pre-K classes which teach children on the spectrum. However, our request is being pushed aside.
This is Bill. Under least restrictive environments, they have to provide a detailed justification for moving your child to a special school. So if they provided that, look at it and see if that can, what they propose, what your child needs, can be done in a general education environment with all possible supports, not just what's currently available.
Okay, can you speak to being a father of a child with special needs? Do you feel it is different than being a mother?
I guess that's for me. Yeah, it certainly is. But every parent's different. I happen to be the lead advocate in my family because I'm the technical guy. But Mom is always the one who has the big picture in mind. So it is different. I mean, all children need a group of people to help them to advocate. So as a father, everybody takes a role.
I have a 10th grader that has a very high IQ but significant executive functioning disorder with possible attention issues. After 6 years, I finally managed to get a 504 approved, which has been wonderful. As we think about colleges for him, I'm wondering how you would recommend that we assess the quality of support that different colleges offer.
This is Corey. I would make sure that you bring your portfolio with you when you are going to different colleges and set up meetings and talk to them and bring the portfolio and see what they can do and how they can work with you. All colleges are ready to sit down and do it, but unfortunately you have to make that move and make that appointment that you have a child with special needs and you want to sit down and see what they can provide for your child. And bring a portfolio, bring, like I said, a binder with his IEPs and amendments, not just this year's, but the last couple of years, so they really have a picture, so they know what they can provide, what they can make work, and he might not take full classes, he might take half-day classes, but they should be able to sit down and work with you if you provide them with a portfolio.
Who can I reach out to if I cannot get support at my local, town, or state level PTA for resources on special needs?
I think that if you go to, again, the resources that are listed on National PTA, there's a whole list of different organizations that will focus. Some of them are more specific, some of them are more generalized, but I think if you started contacting a lot of those agencies that are listed there under resources from the PTA.org page, and I'm sure somebody else might have something else to say.
And this is Bill. If you're not hearing, particularly if you go to the state level and you're not getting support, contact us. We can always support you and find out why not.
And being from a state that has a very small state board, I encourage you to realize also that some of our state boards don't have the capability or the resources to support. And that's part of the reason that we have created a national PTA, so that we can really help the states support the special needs families as they are working through this. So definitely contact us directly, and then we can also possibly connect you with people local or in your state.
IDEA grants are supposed to fund 30% of special education needs at the state and local or district level. This is not happening. Does the National PTA have a group that is advocating for these funds?
Yes, our legislative team on National PTA discusses this, and this is in their legislative priorities every year to get more funding for IDEA and to strengthen IDEA. And Heather could probably talk a little bit more about our legislative team at National.
Okay. How do you manage the small amount of votes for approval in the board when your board puts down the ideas for special education down?
That's a tough one. I would advocate to set up a discussion during a PTA meeting, have it agendized that you would like a discussion about special ed and some of the needs, and that the concerns that it looks like PTA is turning everything down, and how can you work as a team together. But I would have them agendize a part of their meeting to have that candid discussion, to find out why. It could be that they're just not understanding. It could be that they don't know. Sometimes PTAs are looking at their funds need to go to the greater math, but also they need to understand why sometimes the smaller math needs to have those funds for different projects. So I think it would be a really good, candid discussion to have during a PTA meeting, but I would ask that it be agendized, so that way it's on the agenda and they need to talk about it.
One of the best ways I've found is to get, have a dozen parents of special needs students who are interested to request forming a special needs committee. Once you're working as a group and then you become automatically part of the agenda, it's much easier to move forward.
And the other thing that Kathy, that I would suggest, a lot of times schools, and I don't know where this question comes from, are affiliated with either a district, a school district, or a council level. And sometimes, because a local unit doesn't address it, it needs to be addressed from a larger area to involve more people. And so by going to a council or a district level and for, joining forces with the other PTAs in the area will also be an avenue that you could try.
And one last thought is, as you're looking at that type of an option, make sure that whatever you're asking for is something that is related to not just an individual. PTAs are not supposed to provide programs or support to an individual based on IRS rules. And so make sure that if it is a special needs issue, it's something that is special needs to a variety of students, and especially if there's funding involved.
Excellent.
This is the first time that I have known anything about special education support from PTA. How do we get presidents and PTA people to be able to know this is available? I am just a member of PTA and feel like no one knows anything about special education support.
As a special needs committee, we have been trying to reach out to each state and start helping them to understand the process and asking them to create at least a special needs contact person that can then start disseminating the information. But because that's a huge task and there's hundreds and thousands of PTAs, it would be my personal request is if you can also help contact your local PTAs and help them to know that we even exist and that we can then set up some communication.
And something that sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Something that I also think that another caller brought up is possibly a Facebook page or a connection. I know that last year we had a meeting at convention, and there was a need. We saw the need, and I think it's been a while, even though we knew the need was there, to put faces together with that need. And so I think it's also dependent upon the membership to contact National PTA to let them know we need to see more programs, we need to see more information about this out. December is, the last 2 years, has been the month of the special needs child, and we've tried to get information out that way. Again, unfortunately, the way that we communicate is a lot of times through our state offices and the presidents, and that's why we're trying to get to know who our members are. And that's an ongoing issue, but I'm hoping that this is one of the key issues that will bring the importance of knowing who our individual members are so that we can communicate with you all versus the state president or a council president.
And this is Corey. I know what it's like to attend a webinar or go to a convention or a workshop for the first time and take something that your PTA isn't talking about. And you can be the squeaky wheel. You can talk about, oh my gosh, look what I went to today and I had no idea. And I want to talk to people about it, and you can bring it up and see if you can give a report at a meeting and what can we do to get our parents to know about this. So it might take a little bit of time on your side, but I know what it's like to be that person with that squeaky wheel and even go to the principal and say, oh my gosh, look what I did. Or even here in my job now is I go to the superintendent and say, oh my gosh, look what we just did for PTA. And now it's part of what I do in my job and give out that information to all of our special ed parents. So it just takes you. And you can go to your school principal and go to your PTA and show them what you took and what you learned and show them the website. And it's a tool to get out to the special ed parents.
Okay, when you talk about a portfolio, what types of things do you recommend adding to it aside from IEP, evals, etc.? For example, should I ask to have a school counselor letter? I am wanting to make sure I include what a school might be looking for in the most comprehensive way, and at the moment I have a stack of paperwork and spotty notes.
This is Corey. Definitely have the high school year's IEPs and any amendments. If you can get a letter from a counselor or more importantly from teachers, maybe put a little bit of samples of some of the work that your child has done. But mostly the colleges really want to see what kind of accommodations that your child has been getting and what they can give to your child.
Our PTA hosts a field day. Many kids that have special needs really avoid going to this day in school. How can I get the PTA to hear the fears and maybe hear how to plan a little better?
Invite the parents in, the special ed parents in to talk about what their fears are for their child. I don't know for every state, but I know here in Northern California, we did a special event day, and we only expected 50 parents, and we got 200 parents, and 90% of them were Hispanic who thought that their child was the only child on this earth like them. And because their children, a lot of children are bused from 3 years on through high school, and the parents aren't at their home schools and don't feel part of the home schools. So I think if you can round up the parents and talk about what their fears are for their child, because it's more the fear of the parent than the fear of the child. And how can we work around those fears and they have a chance to meet each other and then feel that they're not alone. That's the most important thing.
Is there a process that needs to be followed to form a special education committee within a school PTA?
That would be up to the local PTA's bylaws and the rules that they have. Generally, it would just be contacting them and getting it set up. Generally, there's a process that it has to be either elected or appointed, and there may be a small procedure in the bylaws.
And if they don't have it listed as a regular committee, it could be designated a special committee for the first year so that it could prove its weight. Is unfortunately sometimes how to get it as a regular committee.
And then is the same true for starting a district-wide SEPTA if there is not one currently?
You would need to create a SEPTA, you would need to contact your council, or if you're not involved in a council, probably your state level. It depends on how your state is actually set up, whether you've got councils, regions, districts, that type of information. But there would be a governing body at the state level that would give you the steps to create that. So I would contact your state directly, but it may also involve the local levels as well.
And then our final question, we have, maybe you as a group can share why parents of special needs students have to advocate for their children when their children are entitled to receive many supports and services that are sometimes denied at first. This is especially frustrating for new parents who are not seasoned and don't know what they don't know.
It's built in an ideal world, the schools would be ready for our children, ready to fully support them, and advocate for them, which is actually what is supposed to happen under the law. Unfortunately, that is not the condition in a lot of places. So, that's really where it's important as a parent to begin to train yourself and get the help you need to make sure that schools are doing what they're required to under the law.
And for some of us, this is Kathy, I don't have a child with special needs, and so the learning curve to understand everything that is involved is quite tough. I think that the more education that you can get out there to all parents, I'm right there with them. I'm working locally on some issues, helping some parents here, whereas probably 3 years ago I wasn't that involved with it because of my lack of knowledge, what I call my own ignorance of the issues surrounding special needs families and children. So a lot of it is an educational process, which I believe is truly the purpose of PTA, is to educate all parents for all children. And because of that lack of involvement, for whatever reason, that education is not being provided. So for me, it's a need for educating those of us who didn't know what special needs was all about.
And being a parent of both a special needs child and, well, not really a typical child either, but my daughter, I have realized very quickly that although sometimes I have to speak a little harder and kick a little bit more and bring up a little bit more of a fuss for my special needs child, I have to advocate strongly for my daughter as well. And that is the whole point of why PTA even exists, because we all need to advocate to get things from our schools and our states and our legislators that aren't being provided automatically to us as they should. So we do have to be advocates at every level. Unfortunately, in a perfect world, we wouldn't have to advocate at all, but we do. And unfortunately, special needs sometimes have to be just a little bit louder because those tend to be more expensive propositions and services and more rare opportunities to get the resources into our schools.
And the other thing that I want to bring up, we've used the word advocate a lot, and I think that word intimidates some people, but it's just doing what is best for all children. fighting for what you need for your child and every child. Advocating is what we need to be doing for each and every child in our schools, whatever the issue.
Kathy, those are great last words. So we've run out of time for the webinar. So we would like to conclude the webinar by sharing the contact information for each of the panelists. We'll also follow up offline with any of the questions that we weren't able to address during this session. And again, a recording of this webinar and the slides will be sent to everyone who registered for this webinar by me, Heather Parker, so you'll have my contact information. The recording will also be available on the Special Needs Toolkit on pta.org. So thank you to the panelists for a great presentation and for all of this excellent information, and thanks to you for participating. Have a great rest of the day.
Thanks. Make it awesome.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.